wasn't followed, it obviously was wrong. And we know now that Lauren passed away and that Whitney survived. So identification was not properly done, and we have to look at the systems that were in place and see what happened, because obviously it was tragically wrong here.
I can only imagine that the coroner this is a living nightmare for him, because the last thing anyone wants to do is say to a family, you've lost your child.
Absolutely, and I think we've seen footage from the coroner that he clearly is, concerned about what happened here. Heather raises an interesting point, and I'm not that familiar with the facts. I'm not sure what they are. If, in fact, for example, individuals who knew the actual deceased girl, both of them, not just one of them, but knew both of them, went down to the coroner's office and viewed the body and identified the body as that girl, that would, in general, be a sufficient, along with all the other basic information that they would have, that would generally be sufficient if you're comfortable with that. But you have to keep in mind what's the condition of the deceased when they're making that view, and is there in fact enough that they can really make an identification.
Mike, do you know if someone in fact from Taylor University actually went and identified the body, or did that official just announce that it was Laura Van Ryn that died?
I really can't speak to that. I'm not familiar with exactly what the procedures were, other than that I know that Whitney's sister Carly did go up to either the accident scene, or I'm assuming probably the coroner's morgue office. I'm not sure exactly what the involvement was with Taylor University.
Okay, I'm sure that information will come out at some point.
And from what I understood from the information that I reviewed before coming here, it was that they were asking questions at Taylor University during this process. It wasn't just a matter of, well, we think that's who she is. After a while, after a couple of weeks, they began to ask questions. They didn't think at Taylor University it was her.
I think that what happened was the roommate and the boyfriend brought it to the attention of the officials at Taylor University, that in fact they had some questions once Whitney began speaking and expressing herself a little bit. She had a trach, and once the trach was capped, I think she was able to speak and express herself.
See, that answers the question that a lot of people are wondering, why she wasn't able to say something before 5 weeks, and that information right there is very helpful to answering that question. Back to the telephone lines, because this story is intriguing people all over the country, as far away as Oregon. Kevin has called. Hi, Kevin. Good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
What's your question or comment on this case?
Well, I'm a funeral director, and so we see people who are in massive trauma in car accidents, and typically when you talk about head trauma in a car accident of that type, you talk about structure change. There was only one laceration on the forehead, I think is what the gentleman said, but you can have a lot of structure damage that completely distorts and changes the view of a person. So if they did have people that did identify the body and go and look, and because of hair color and body type and size and things like that, said yes, that's her, I can completely understand how that could be that could happen, because there's just so much structure change that goes along with head trauma that it is difficult with swelling and different things to make a positive identification.
So Kevin, do you concur with Heather when she says that blame perhaps is not the right word?
Yeah, because typically the medical examiner isn't going to announce an identification unless they're confident from one of their methods that's happened. It could have been police, it could have been hospital, it could have been witnesses, or friends and family. It could have been a lot of different people that indicated that was her, or it could have been the coroner. But typically, if nobody makes that identification, the coroner doesn't guess. I mean, they do have procedures in place, whether it's dental records or different things, as a last resort. So usually, before the coroner makes that determination, somebody else would tell them, yes, this is who it is.
So it seemed like all signs pointed to it being Whitney, when in fact now we know it was Laura. Mike, did you want to jump in on that?
Well, I think, that's one of the things that you have to consider, is that in hindsight now we're able to say that, well, that they both bore a striking resemblance to each other, facial features, body features, hair, eyes, that type of thing. But the Van Ryn family, as the pastor from Gaylord Evangelical Free Church, where the Syriacs attend, and took Mrs. Sirek down with the dental records to make the final positive identification, said the Van Ryans were never told anything other than that this was their daughter. And as the one caller had mentioned with the facial trauma and, you know, the cuts and lacerations, that type of thing.
You wouldn't have any reason to suspect that it was someone else, would you? That's a question that we're going to talk about, but I have to take a quick break. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your call. Always good to hear from our viewers on the West Coast. When we come back, if you have questions about this mix-up, there's still time for you to join in. We'll also talk about what legal repercussions might be associated with this case. If you were one of these families, would you sue? That's coming up next. Stay with us.